Again. Is that okay? Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for the lovely ambient music. A very, very warm welcome to this Managing Eco-Anxiety and Avoiding Burnout session. My name is Lavinia and I'll be leading this session. Yeah, so just a quick request to those of you who might not have done so yet. Please change your name to your first name, the country you're in, and your preferred pronouns. Also, just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded. So if you would like not to be recorded, you can just turn off your video. But please turn it on again when you're in the breakout rooms, because then everyone can see your lovely faces and it makes the conversation that much nicer. Yeah, so this session hopefully will just be a place where we can kind of understand our own relationship with work and overworking in our climate activism. And also our relationship with eco-anxiety and anxiety generally, and how we can learn to live with it and cope with it a bit better. This obviously isn't the same as seeking help from a mental health professional. So if you feel like you would like help from some kind of professional, I really, really strongly encourage you to seek it out. Yeah, so before we begin, I'd just like to say a few words on self-care as being activism, because self-care is activism, and it's really, really hard to stress just how much this is the case, because it really is. In the same way that you can't expect a tree to be healthy and to grow and be strong if you don't give it water and sunlight and nutrients, you also can't expect yourself to be an effective person and change maker and whatever if you don't give yourself time for rest and leisure. You just won't work as well, you won't be as stable, you won't be as supportive, you won't be as your stamina won't be as high, all of this stuff. And doing what we love, so you know, cooking, creating, being with friends, spending time in nature, exploring, reading, sport, all this stuff is the kind of stuff that gives us the motivation and passion and inspiration to keep fighting this fight and keep doing what we do. They're not separate at all, they're deeply, deeply interlinked. So just, yeah, dedicating ourselves to the things we love outside of our activism, outside of our change work, is just as much part of making the change as the more concrete change work. Yeah, and also self-care is different for everyone. So for some people it might be a really, you know, you might love being really, really sociable and spending loads of time with people and really being out there, and that feels really nourishing and exciting for you. And for other people it might be spending more time in solitude and being slow and being gentle, and other people it's a mix of the two. And just really knowing yourself and what feels good for you and what feels right for you is going to be a really, really helpful way for you to look after yourself. So yeah, self-care is this really beautiful and radical thing of choosing to look after yourself, and that in itself is just rebellious in the toxic society that we live in. So yeah, now we're moving on to the first section of this session, which is burnout. And burnout is basically just reaching a state of sheer exhaustion because of having worked too much and not being able to work anymore or work effectively. And it's really, really, really common among people who work for change. It's really, really easy to let your well-being take a backseat, because what you're working for and what you're concentrating your energy on feels so, so important, and often more important than your own well-being and yourself. But it's so important that we recognize that our well-being is what enables us is what enables us to work to make the world a better place. And we can understand looking after ourselves and looking after our well-being as our commitment to our cause. They're not, again, separate, they're part of each other. If we are exhausted and burnt out and tired, we will actually work less effectively than if we're better rested and have had more time for ourselves and for leisure and for enjoying life. And we can kind of actually understand that as a really beautiful and empowering thing, that loving ourselves and being slow with ourselves and being kind to ourselves and honouring who we are and what we need is actually part of making this world a better place, and part of the work we're doing to save the planet and to help nature. And yeah, I think that's really beautiful. So there are two kind of main causes for burnout. They're the same, but they constellate slightly differently. One is being in really, really high intensity situations. And the second is working for long stretches of time and not resting enough. You can do both of those things at the same time and get burnout, or you can just have one of those in your life, but both of those lead to burning out. Also, there are loads of symptoms for burnout, but I know you all can use the internet, so I just encourage you to Google them. But the best ways to prevent and heal from burnout are simply resting. And I mean resting in the broad sense of the term, not just sleeping, but also taking time for doing the things we love, because that is also rest. That is the stuff that energizes us and makes us feel passionate. A lot of us feel like we can't get burnout, or like burnout isn't something that we'll get because we feel we're not working enough or we're not working hard enough. And that's really, really dangerous, because those kinds of people are the ones who often get burnout the most, because they haven't kind of calculated how where they stand in terms of their own boundaries as much. We have in our generally in the world a way too high standard of what enough work is, and we kind of imagine like working dawn till dusk is doing enough or being a hard worker, but actually really intensely working for something doesn't have to be all of your life, and actually it shouldn't be, and it's not healthy for us. So really kind of tuning in with ourselves and where our energy lies, and when we feel passionate and when we feel like we can do stuff and when we actually need time off is really, really important in preventing it. So I hope we've kind of understood some of what leads us to burnout. And I think intellectually we're all there, we've all understood it. And now I'd really like us to move into the emotional way of engaging with it. What most people recognize that burnout is a really, really big risk, especially among people who work for change, and they can see that and they know it, but at the same time they do keep overworking themselves. And what happens, the reason why this happens, is that people don't take time to acknowledge the emotions of what drives them to overwork. So even though they know they're not doing the right thing, they still can't stop working, or they still can't take enough time out. So what I want us now to do is to kind of take some time together and really reflect on what it might take us to not give ourselves enough time off, or not take enough time for leisure and for fun. So we're going to go into a breakout room, or a few breakout rooms, and talk a little bit amongst ourselves. And we'll have 5 minutes we'll have 10 minutes in total and 5 minutes for each question. What I'd like us to do when we go into these breakout rooms is practice something called active listening. So listening is different to hearing. Hearing is just the process of sound being processed and understood by your brain. And listening is actually proactively giving your attention to the speaker. And I would really like us all to kind of honor whoever it is who might be speaking in these breakout rooms, and not be kind of looking away or thinking about what we're going to eat for lunch or whatever, all these things, and really just respecting the person who is speaking and being with them. And then realizing that when it's our turn to speak, we'll really be listened to, and trying to suspend our judgment when we listen. So the two questions are, and we'll also broadcast message them to you, is how can you tell that you're working too hard? And then the second question, we'll let you know when it's time for that one, is what do you think you'll lose if you work less hard or stop working when you're tired? And so hopefully we can kind of, listen to each other and listen to ourselves and understand, how we work and what our relationship is with pausing and keeping going and all this stuff. I hope that was clear. And we'll see you in 10 minutes then. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome back. We're now going to move on to the second half of this session, which is talking about eco-anxiety. And I'm pretty sure that if you're in the session, you've probably experienced eco-anxiety. But basically what it is this kind of chronic fear of the future of our planet, or the state of the planet now. And it can just feel really, really terrifying and overwhelming, and it can feel hard to find hope in life, or meaning in life, or kind of direction, because the fear and the anxiety and what you're feeling is so overwhelming. And what's really, really important that we recognize is that there's nothing wrong with us for feeling this. It's a really, really like perfectly reasonable reaction to the reality of what is happening in the planet and in the world right now. So in feeling it, like, let's try not to kind of beat ourselves up about it or try to stop feeling like, you can't stop feeling anxious about it, but what you can do is learn to have a more healthy relationship with your own anxiety and learn how to cope with it better and understand it better, because anxiety will always be part of our lives. And yeah, the end goal isn't eliminating anxiety or pushing it down, but actually, oh, sorry. Whew. But actually, yeah, learning how to live with it and be with it. So I have three tips that have really, really helped me and are generally proven to really help with climate anxiety. And the first is to really acknowledge the feeling. So because what happens with climate anxiety is that your attention is kind of fully focused on the state of the planet, the potential future of the planet, and what that'll mean for your life and the world and all of this stuff. And that's where everything goes. And you feel that these really, really intense feelings as a reaction to these thoughts and these imaginings. And so what we can do is turn our attention back onto ourselves and acknowledge the feelings as they are happening in us, and recognizing that the feelings that we're feeling aren't actually the same as what we're imagining. It's that there is a difference, even though they're connected. And also recognizing that what an emotion is, or what a feeling is a message from your mind or from your body or yourself to acknowledge something. So, you know, happiness is a signal to help you acknowledge that something is good, and anxiety is a signal to help you acknowledge that something is bad or something needs to be changed. And so in actually listening to that feeling and thinking, okay, right now I'm feeling really, really anxious and scared and worried and a bit hopeless and sad, in actually acknowledging that, you really, really help yourself move through those feelings. So that is a really, really helpful and for me also important way of dealing with it and being real with ourselves, and not actually pushing it down, because pushing it down and trying to not let ourselves feel that anxiety actually won't make it go away. It'll come back in more intense ways later. So really being real with it when it comes up is a really, really important thing to do. Another really, really important and helpful thing that we can do is find community and find people who understand what we're going through and will listen to us, and who we can listen to and be vulnerable together and do stuff together with. It's psychologically proven that the best way that we can actually cope with enormous amounts of stress and distress are finding social support, and so finding people who will listen to us. And yeah, community can manifest in so many different ways. It can be kind of the change group you're working in, it can be a group of friends, it can be an online community. There can be so many different kinds of community, but finding those people when you're able to, or maybe you already have, is a really, really important part of it. Because caring for ourselves isn't just this kind of thing that you do by yourself. It is also this wider perspective of how we live together and how we as humans are together. So yeah, I'd really like us to take some time now to reflect on what a strong community is, and what a community that could help support us through eco-anxiety would look like, or looks like for you. So we're going to go back into breakout rooms and try and really listen to each other again and be with each other. And we'll have 5 minutes to discuss this question. Yeah, and then we'll be back and see each other again. So until then.